Good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Iyori Folare. My guest this morning is Dr. Ibrahim Mohammed. He's ITT business executive and also policy analyst. He's CEO of 100% Focus. Dr. Ibrahim, thank you very much for making your time available for us this morning.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Indeed. Now, the big news, of course, is that the inflation rate has dropped for January 2025, almost 10% to 24.48%. That sounds like great news. It's the kind of news we've been looking for. It's the kind of news we want to hear. But by the time people have been looking at it, they say, well, maybe we need to go understand the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, first. If we can understand that and the use that the National Bureau of Statistics has made of it, then we'll begin to understand it better and also, more importantly, understand that nothing is going to change in terms of the purchasing power in the hands of Nigerians. First of all, do you agree with that? And can you let's understand and explain this matter of the Consumer Price Index, Nigeria suddenly coming to 10% drop in inflation. That sounds like great news. But there are those who are saying, what is going on here is little more than a PR exercise. Doctor, how say you?
That's a very good question. You see, from perspective of economy for Nigeria, it's going to be very difficult for an institution like Bureau of Statistics to come with a figure that it has dropped by 10%, it has increased by 20%, because where is the data coming from? Because people are spending money in indirect market where you don't have systems. So is it that they have agents everywhere telling them this is the price of goods, this is not what the price of goods is. So technically, from a layman's perspective, that figure is just mere cosmetic. It's just not something that is interested in. The seller of a goose, for instance, knows how much you're supposed to sell a goose. So depending on what type of goods the seller is selling, basic goods that we buy are perishable items, and which, for instance, in Lagos, those items do not come from Lagos. They do come from the northern part of the country. But for the fact that it's coming from northern part of the country, the basic thing that affects the price of those perishable items, transportation, for instance. So if there's an increment in the pump price, definitely it will affect the price of the goods. And some of those things, they do not have also a measure of how much have we put in the farm product from the start of planting it up to the harvest. They do not know. So these are people that have not gone to school. They're just there to, whatever you ask them, that's what they do. So is the seller, the final seller to maybe Lagos markets that determine how much a perishable goods supposed to be. So, but because it's a perishable goods, if people are not buying, it's going to spoil. So if it's going to spoil, it's going to lose. So we rather now give it out. And you know, January 1st, before January 1st, there was festivity. But now there's no festivity. So people are not spending anything. They're not spending. Goods are just stable in there. Nobody is buying them the way they're supposed to buy them before. So it will be definitely difficult for you to come up and say 10% are dropped from the CPI. And another fact that we're supposed to look at in December, naturally everywhere in the world, there's always an increment in price of every good we're buying because of the festivity. So if there's no festivity, they will definitely go back to their natural price. So January is that kind of month where people are not buying things because it's after festivity. So the increment in December is not real. So definitely we can assume that January's price or January CPI they're coming up with could have gone back to its normal state from where it was before December 2024, sorry. So that's why they will now come by next month or next 2 months, the real actual CPI, or whether it has increased or not, will definitely, you cannot use just 1 month to say there's a progress. It must be a trend for up to 6 months.
Yeah, but this is the rebasing aspect. They're talking about a rebasing. For instance, they tell us that what? If you want to look at the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, look at it as something of as a basket. And they say there was a time when, what? There were 960 products, so to speak, in this basket. And now, you know, that is the situation now. And this is up from 740 products. In other words, some products were not actually captured when it comes to making these calculations. So all of this is sort of like resetting, realigning. It's a bit of panel beating work, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And another thing is, when you look at it, for every government, it needs to find a way to make life comfortable for the consumer from dissemination of news.
Yes.
To let people understand that we're doing well. But the actual doing well, you and I will understand whether we're doing well or not. Because when you now take a look at the general economy of Nigeria, just go to FlightWare, because this topic is all about practical, and look at the airspace of Nigeria. How many flights do we get flying in our airspace from morning till night? You realize the international flight in a day cannot be more than 10, and maybe Lagos has the busiest, Abuja. When you go to the rest of the airport, people are not flying. So by the time you look at airlines prices of tickets, it's not stable. Today is 100,000, tomorrow is 150,000. So is that a product they consider in the 10% decrement, where they're saying that it has reduced by 10%? So how can you put 960 products in the basket, and now just when we have millions of products in the country? So it's going to be kind of very difficult, like I said. But to consumer, the real basket is the food basket.
Okay.
The real food products. Once the food products is affordable, then we can understand the 10%. But as long as the food product is not affordable, and it's always increasing. But in the northern part of the country, they're very appreciative with what's going on. Because I did a kind of door-to-door question of few people. I say, no, food prices have been reduced. Say, how? I say, we're buying it at so amount in December. But so to me as a mathematician, I know in December there was a reason why it increased, and now there's a reason why. But let's now look at it by 1st of March, when is the time for Ramadan. So many things will go up. So the inflation will go back to normal. Again, normal means it's going to increase.
Well, that is exactly what this administration is fighting against. Yes. It doesn't want the normal to be a high inflation rate. Yes, right now, we are, if not suffering, at least we are grappling.
So the thing is, again, that is affecting the economy, like I always say, indirect markets. We have people doing informal marketing, whereby we don't write them in a book. So it's going to be very difficult for government of this to be able to track and even say they can do something about it. Well, for instance, now, someone will go to America and just purchase a car, and will bring it into Nigeria. Probably it's $100,000. Then he will just tell you it's 400 million naira. So on basis, why is it 400? Just go to Gigi and look at the 2024 cars. You realize that they are selling them as double. Usually, if you ask them, why are you doing this? They say they don't know the stability of naira. So as long as the naira is stable, things would naturally come down. It won't go up. So at this period that we are, China is already on vacation for Chinese festival. So people are not requesting for Forex. So once the Forex is not going up, then things will look normal and stable. But immediately, there's always a demand on the Forex. I need dollar, they go to black market and get it. You know, it's only in Nigeria have black market controlling things. Okay, in other countries, it's difficult to even see the dollar, it is difficult to see the local currency, not talk of, when you look at Ethiopia's economy, you think Ethiopia's economy is better than Nigeria's economy, because the rate of their beer to a dollar is about 49 to 50, but ours is 1,500, right? When you look at Kuwait, for instance, it's like double. You pay double dollar, like $2.5 to get 1 Kuwait dinar. So when you're buying a bottle of water in Kuwait and comparing it with bottle of water in Nigeria, you realize Nigeria, to live in Nigeria is cheaper. So internally, within our context, the context of Nigeria's economy, we're doing very well in terms of prices of goods compared to the equivalent outside Nigeria.
Outside Nigeria, which the ordinary Nigerian, who is the overwhelming preponderance of voters when elections come, they are not.
They don't understand that.
They don't understand that.
They don't understand.
They're not aware of what's happening in the neighboring country. They concern themselves with what's happening in their own country.
So the biggest problem is what they get home. Take home pay.
Yes.
They get is very low.
Yes.
Versus they're spending. So they look at that. It's a serious topic for the government to look at that. Because if you say 30,000 naira is the average salary of a typical Nigerian, maybe a security man, for instance, how much is 30,000 naira? Is $20 for 30 days. Whereas a counterpart of the same Nigerian in America, mopping floor or a security man is getting $80 per day for 8 hours, $10 per hour. So 2 hours work is what we pay for 720 hours in Nigeria. We pay $20, which is 2 hours work in America, and it's 720 hours in Nigeria. So, but the thing is, when you want to buy food in America, the average you spend, the cheapest is $10, which is 16,000 naira in Nigeria. But you and I do know that we can't go to Mama Put and spend 16,000. You know, it's a serious, but we spend 2,000 to 3,000. But how do you
we're complaining on that 2,000 to 3,000.
Yes, how do you get the 3,000 is the question.
And then what do you go through to get the 3,000
naira? So now, depending on the services that also the individual is rendering. So if you are a mason in the north, which I'm familiar with, in Abuja, a typical mason is collecting 5,000 naira per day for working for 8 hours. So that is 150,000 naira per month when you look at it. If he's going to work for it, but he's going to do 22 days, which is about 110,000 per month. So which is better than someone going for a salary work, white-collar job that is paying 90,000 after going to UK to read. You come back, you spend like 100 million to send a child to school, and his salary is barely up to $150,000. I mean, 150,000 naira per month. And 150,000 naira, mind you, is $100. So for a graduate with master's degree, is getting 150,000. Then at the end of the day, we have the so-called the richest man in the 86th or 86th richest man in the world is coming from Nigeria, and who is also the richest man in Africa. And
in Nigeria,
and also the richest man, the black man in the world. So at the end of the day, it brought down what is not working, what is it working? How is Dangote making it? Why some an average Nigerians not getting it? What do they supposed to do? So what is the government supposed to do to us now? The biggest challenge is the next 10 years. Our children, when they get, because everybody has sent his or her child to a very good school. So at the end of the day, they finish up, the competition will be high. So the next we start thinking about living
for white-collar jobs.
Yes, for white-collar jobs. Because if you have, I don't know how many kids you have. I have like 5. So our average adult now will have like 5 kids times 10 million. That's 50 million graduates in the next 10 years, for instance. So where do we have 50 million jobs? No. So everybody will now be doing survival of the fittest. So the Nigerian government need to look at the on-tap economy that we're now looking at. For instance, we have solid mineral that we're not looking at. We only depend on the crude oil and some maybe farm products like that.
Are there some developments in the minerals, the solid mineral sector? I thought there was a better promise now that, in fact, contrary to what you've just said, this administration, the Tinubu administration, says we are going to pay particular attention there, and they seem to be, working in that direction. Are you saying that you're not impressed with whatever might have come out of that place?
No, I'm truly impressed with this administration. Okay. They have the administration started with a lot of challenges. They need to do a lot of housekeeping by changing the right people with the right people, by changing wrong people with the right people, by changing the wrong people with the wrong people. So it's a normal, typical administrative task that every government will do. So sometimes it takes a whole year if you do not even have enough people to be on. Like for instance, when you take a look at Trump, before he got into his administration, 60 days before, his ministers were ready. Right? But in Nigeria, in our context, because of political reasons, sometimes it takes like 6 months. Sometimes it takes even more than, but Tinubu's administration really try. Under 90 days, they were able to come up with a list. And at some point, they are not doing well, he will shuffle them, right? And one of the biggest challenges of Nigerians earlier was security issue. But now it seems like the security has been stabilized to some extent.
You think so?
Yeah, compared to before.
Well,
now.
compared to where we were before.
So we should be appreciative of our improvement. Just like the CPI that we're saying we're not happy with. Because they look at, okay, in January things had come down, but they don't look at the fact that in December it has gone up. So definitely January will come down because no people
because that's the pattern. It's a seasonal pattern.
So now next month is going to go high. So you now have to pick from January last year to December. How did
comparing month for month.
The trend, or 3 years, month in, month out. So when you do that, you now realize that it's fairly stable. Like I was telling you, it's China's festival that is affecting our economy now. But next month, you will truly understand the true position of our economy. Then, but I know I was talking about Tinubu's administration. I'm impressed with certain things they're doing. In the area of security, he wanted to have a stable security officers. I mean, people heading security organizations. Like, for instance, police now. You know, there's a controversy around the IG supposed to go or not to go. When you look at, okay, IG spent 1 year. He has an agenda, how to implement the agenda. But after 1 year, he's going. Another person will come. So there will be instability in the personnel, moving them from one place to another. So that's why they have to now adjust our constitution to make it right that it should be a tenure base, not by age or not by number of years you spend. So to now look like, even though he's supposed to be an officer, but he's still an officer. An officer today will be officer tomorrow, whether he is retired or not. So that's why I say I'm impressed with how Tinubu is handling things gradually. So, but we can fix Nigeria if we can get the thinking of Bola Ahmed Tinubu and how he's handling things for the next 20 years. Meaning, stability.
Nigeria
because
over the next 20 years.
Yes.
Beyond what he's doing now is establishing the beginning.
Just like when you look at this environment, Eco-Atlantic was not there before, but because there's a vision that after 20 years we're going to have Eco-Atlantic, and now look at what's going on. In the next 10 years, people will get money and still develop this place. But that visionary thinking started with him while he was here.
Okay.
So we're thinking Nigeria will also be like that.
Let me take a break now. We'll be right back. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back, and our guest is still with us, Dr. Ibrahim Mohammed, and we're looking at, well, the rebasing of the CPI, and which has, resulted in the dramatic disclosure that we're coming down from 34.4% inflation rate to 24.48%, and we've just been hearing from Dr. Ibrahim Mohammed other things that you have to consider. There are economists who are saying that it's little more than a PR adjustment. That it really, because that is said because it doesn't mean that when you go to the market as a result of this announcement, we should see a corresponding decrease. Nah, it's not going to work like that. That's not, we are being warned. That's not, but foreign investors who want to come into your country are going to be looking at such figures. They want to know what is your inflation, what is the inflation rate in the country that they're thinking of going into. And is there a sense in which this is therefore helpful to them? Anybody, because we know that we are inviting foreign direct investment. So explaining from that point of view, a foreign investor, does this now help him, the fact that we've now altered the base year from 2009 to 2024? Does this help?
And I don't think so, because, foreigners do not really pay attention to, foreign investors do not really pay attention to what is happening locally.
Okay.
There are basic things they look at. How will they trust a country? So if you're giving me a sovereign guarantee to come and invest in Nigeria, am I going to be secure in the next 10 years in terms of political stability? If you are not the government today, there's going to be a policy in the future that will make me lose my money or lose my investment. So foreign investors look at that as much. So if you have unstable government that will just bring a policy today and change it tomorrow, investors will look at that seriously. And secondly, they look at the infrastructure you have in place. Whether the infrastructure is working correctly, for instance, internet infrastructure, whether it's working correctly, how do you handle power? Do you have stable power? Do you have stable security? How will their workers be able to securely live in Nigeria and do some work, even though they can still supervise? When you look at Microsoft now is investing $1 million to train some Nigerians on artificial intelligence. Google is trying to do that. So now you can see the investors are tapping in the ability of Nigerians to be able to learn and also produce certain things. They believe that we'll have a lot of mathematicians, we have a lot of bright people that are supposed to be helped. So they are now using their own money to say, oh, Nigerian government, take this and invest in knowledge. $1 million, invest in knowledge, which is an intangible investment. It's not going to give them anything until much later. So it's a signal to tell the government, whatever you are getting, whatever you are having, you need to invest in education. And you need to make your education to have infrastructure that will help people. So now by the time you now say investor is coming, is looking at the CPI's base, they don't look at that. They look at the talent you have. They look at the security you have. They look at the infrastructure you have. They look at how stable your economy is in terms of the forex. How can they repatriate easily the investment they've done back to their country? So but technically, if I was going to be asked to head or lead team, for instance, Nigeria, I would make, okay, Netflix, come to Nigeria and have Nigeria's business. I mean, invest in Nigeria. But you do me one thing. You work with my local currency. And please, 50 years from now, you're not repatriating. Because if you repatriate, that means everything we've gotten for the whole year is going to go to movies. So how can we improve? Okay, you also help us. Whatever you're getting, please, can you borrow us that money to do infrastructure? Because when you look at it now, 2,000 Naira times 1 million people paying for Netflix and convert it to Forex. That means whatever you're bringing in from your crude oil, we are also spending it out. So you have Netflix, you have Amazon, you have Google, you have all this, they're all foreign companies coming to invest in Nigeria. So at the end of the day, these are the things that end up and sum up, for instance, affect our economy, because a lot of direct foreign investment for people repatriating immediately affect the economy.
Okay. Well, Mazi Okorofo has called in from Aruchuku. Good morning, Mazi. Are you still there, Mazi Okorofo? Mazi Okorofo. Maybe there's a technical issue. Maybe we've lost Mazi Okorofo for some, but we're just sort of Mazi Okorofo.
Yeah, Mazi Okorofo from Aruchuku. You see, when we talk about this inflation, you see, the other variables are still constant. One by the other variables, because of privileges in the market, is still high. And because of things like that, all this is a bit general food for people now, it's still high. So what I'm just suggesting is that the need to have to be, as our manufacturers, government has to talk to them. Because in as much as inflation is coming down, what they should be doing is that. So the things like that have already in stock, and the one they are bringing in, they should not allow the price of the one they bring to be the same thing with the one that's already down. That is the issue of their facing. Because the manufacturers, the farmers will tell you because of transportation. Agreed. But the transportation, everything is coming down gradually. But the people that are the sellers are not helping matters. As the only consumers that are facing, look at our workers. How much is if you look at you are aware that some states they need to pay the minimum wage. Some states that start to pay now, they pay some and stop. The allowances is still hanging. So that is if you look at our core members, I pity them a lot. I was saying that please let the federal government do the needful. Our core members that are serving in different locations, they should do the needful. They say the minimum wage. They don't pay them because That are something but not the green. It can't even accommodate, cannot take care of the accommodation, not take care of their feeding. And even the primary assignment they are going, the people are just rejecting many of them. They have been floating, which is not healthy. In as much as the inflation is moving down, it's nothing that is stable, nothing is constant. We should do the needful that the government look into the variables. Good morning, Mazi Okorafor from Arutu. Good morning, Sayori.
Thank you very much, Mazi Okorafor. Well, you heard that
Yes.
contributor. You know, well, there's so many things because we've just grabbed hold of the 10% downward slide, and that sounds exciting, 34% to 24%. And we've been at pains to explain that, put it in context, because very little, if anything at all, has actually changed in practical terms of the Nigerian housewife, for instance, going to the market or, going, whatever. All our bills are still where they are. And this is very important. And you've just explained that even we were saying that the investors who want to come into Nigeria might find it useful. You've put that in perspective as well and saying, look, how much of your local economic policies and matters interest the investors? What they will be looking at will be different. So will they be looking at the kind of things that Mazi Okorafor is talking about? What is it that investors will be looking at? Because the President Tinubu, is doing all that he can. Well, perhaps, it's not yet to who we can still do more to get foreign direct investment in. But they will be looking at some things. Does this help? You've said that, well, first off, you don't really think so.
No, it's not going to help. It really help in the sense that they look at the culture of the environment. Okay, what exactly in the last 10 years other investors that have come to Nigeria were able to achieve? What stability do you have in your policy? Because we have a system whereby, a policy is not like a constitution. So a government will create a policy today and it won't protect the policy. When you create a policy, protect it with constitution. So when the next government comes, it will be difficult for the government to change that policy. But if it's with the interests of the country, they will debate it at National Assembly, which now save the country. But you come, okay, we bring in investors. Another government will come, will try to bring in investors. And that government will say, I have to take out these investors by creating a policy that will affect them. So my own investors will now be able to grab that market. So if we can protect the investors in terms of our sovereign guarantee and our policy, we assure them in the next 20 years, nobody's going to touch you and we're going to invest in this area. But our interest is, how do we allow a typical Nigerian have a direct benefit from the investment you're doing? We don't want you to invest, and at the end of the day, Nigerians are doing a lot for you, and you're taking everything away.
Yeah.
So that means we're being used. Okay, you bring $100 billion into the economy. So what exactly do you want to take out? So we need to protect our interests. But it seems like the people doing the policy service, I have interest in this, I'm just bringing the investor because there's this, that for me. They look at that. So we shouldn't allow our country to look like that. Take for instance, you can't just go to Singapore and say you want to invest. The people there are very strict. They follow rules of law to be able to implement. So how internally is the character that the investor will look at? The character is important, because if we have lawless people within the system that do not respect rule of law, for the fact that I always tell you security is one of it. So if our security personnel do not respect court, for instance, if a court gives a judgment or an order, an officer who is a policeman needs to respect that, and also do not tamper with data. Tampering with that data is an important thing. So if an investor will look, okay, character-wise, I'm not going to invest in Nigeria because they said there's so-called corruption, right? But what would make him conclude in that direction? It's not just giving tip. It's not a corruption. Giving tip at the airport or anywhere you go. In America, it's even formalized. Tip is written in your bill. Tip. Yeah. So you are just tipping someone. That's not correct. But correction is the character you have. When you set a rule, you break it, and nothing will be done.
So we still, and I'm guessing you are of the opinion that we still have work to do in that area.
Yes, character is an important phenomenon.
The way we are seen, the perception.
So perception, yes.
But you see, how does this work? Because, as you know, Nigerians
yes.
are viewed there's a respectability about Nigerians when it comes to the world stage. Konjo, Weala, all those, exactly. So these are people of high reputations, but we still are grappling with what you've just said. Will be a question on investors' minds. To what extent are these people lawful in their conduct? Do they?
Especially the executives, because they're the one driving the economy, the executives. So now when you have a system whereby some people will be asked to retire, and you now see some people coming out, like, for instance, the Nigerian police, the NPF, coming out to say police officers falsified their age. How is that possible?
Yeah.
From day one, don't you have the data? There is you can't come on paper and put that an investor was say a police officer changing his age on the system, and you expect me to come and invest?
No, he won't change his age on the system. I believe the Nigerian way.
No, because when you say falsified,
you've known.
When you say falsified, to me as an investor, it's on the system that to be. Because it's something that's supposed to be uneditable. Once you have a date of birth, it's supposed to be fixed.
Yes.
So if you go to an embassy now, you produce your national passport, and you have a visa on it, that is your age.
That's right.
You cannot change it.
And you too.
Right? So why will somebody that is an officer that had traveled out of the country will now go back to the system, have another data that is not corresponding with the one that he traveled, and we even allow that information to go on dailies?
Is it as bad as that? Because I thought what Nigerians are reported to have been doing is that they come into service and purposely shave 5 years off their life, if, for example, when it comes to the date of birth.
So how do you even prove they've done so? You must have a base. You can't just come out and say falsified.
Yeah.
Then there must be an evidence. So where's the original and where is the fake? So how do they do? And they were still acting serving the country. So they say whoever that is having a falsified document should resign.
Well,
so that means you even know the problem from onset. Now you do just so that now question your integrity as the head. Why did you allow that to happen? So also, why will the country itself allow that to happen? So that means from the civil service point of view, the people keeping data, there's kind of manipulation in there. So these are the character thing that an investor will look at. Okay, they will say, okay, somebody has borrowed $600 million out of the bank and to invest in oil, and we didn't see that happening within the Nigerian context. So Nigerians are borrowing money off. So they want to invest in a bank. So that means a risky investor will look at that like, look, from risk management perspective, I've seen you on your dailies. You're saying your former Minister of Petrol with some group of people with First Bank, they've taken 600 million naira loan. $600 million loan, and they're not bringing it back. So that 600 million is a lot of money in terms of naira. Million is not even the naira. They're talking about the raw 600 million raw. The raw is raw, not naira, right? Naira is digitally created on the system, but this one is a physical money. There's no digital dollar in Nigeria's economy. It must be physical for you. So now you're now having that issue coming on your dailies. In the same month, you're talking about price CPI. In the same month, you're talking about you don't have stability in your security system. Some people are questioning the integrity of IGP, who's supposed to be #1 in terms of protecting Nigerians.
Haven't they resolved that by saying that there is no issue there really? There are laws covering the extension of the appointment of the IGP, for example. And that I think people have come in on that matter and have commented. You've heard these commentaries that there is no illegality.
No, yes, I'm not talking about him, the head. I totally support the fact that constitutionally that one has been corrected.
Okay.
Right? No, I'm not talking about the IGPMs. I'm talking about people he's heading. They're saying police officers falsified their documents. So now that question, we are not resigning because our IGP is not going. We too also were not going. Some DIGs said they are not going. So how can you? It's an appointment by federal government. And they want him there, they want him there. But you are not appointed. You are appointed through civil service. And the civil service rule said this and this and that. But for IGP, there's a clause that covered it. But you are now questioning or arguing with the government, you're not going. So an investor will look at that. You even have people that you cannot control from the law enforcement point of view. So if you cannot control your house, I'm not secure in doing business here.
Okay. You know, well, thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed, because putting this in perspective, that's what we're doing. And ever since the announcement was first made, immediately people have begun to say that, okay, but it still isn't making a difference in my life yet. Let me ask about other areas. For example, look at the whole the effort to handle taxation. You know, the 4 bills that were sent to the National Assembly. Is this going to help?
Yeah, you see, whenever we're discussing economy with people sometimes, I always tell them, like, you see, we just go by the theory. We do this, we do that. Taxation is being collected in naira value.
Okay.
So the mistake that the government had done in the last 20 years over creation of naira.
Okay.
Our budget before was about 2 trillion during Obasanjo's time. They said it was too much. Before Obasanjo, go back and look at what Sani Abacha and the IBP had done with the budget. Our GDP at that time, it was about $20 billion. And they were able to create Abuja and also partially Lagos from scratch in 5 years. Then go back and look at Abuja today in the last 20 years. What have they contributed in terms of infrastructure? But at the end of the day, how much have we spent? In terms of our budget and expense, you do budget, right? You can make sure that you also cover the budget by expenditure. So you see white elephant expenditure within our budget system. That's the put, and at the end of the day. So what I'm saying is overcreation of the naira internally is the biggest challenge of the government. So whatever policy you're going to bring, naira has digitally been overcreated, not physically. You know, before you have to save it in a room, but now digitally you can just open a system. How much loan do you want? 20 billion. They'll just give you the loan, write it against your name. So that's an inflation. Because
it's not backed by any service, not backed by any goods or anything.
So at the end of the day, when you bring out that money, they say, okay, it's 10,000 naira for a goose. I have that money. You just spend it. So the owner of the goose will say, if you can spend 10,000, then that's my new price. Not looking at the normal consumers, right? So like I always use what is practical. For instance, a car is being sold on GG for 5 times the amount in America. So what is the basis? So a government is not looking at that. You couldn't control car sellers.
So exactly.
And somebody will put 500 million naira car, and at the end of it, will tell you he has sold it yesterday. In the future, he tell I just sold it. Who is buying 500 million naira car to drive on the road of Nigeria? Where did he get the money from, and why is he even doing that? Why is he even buying that? So these are the things that...
Well, a few people arguably can. Take our musicians, for instance. You see, at least on social media, what they're doing.
Couldn't they be controlled by the character of the nation?
Well,
because when you look at the musicians of America, for instance, they pick it Bobby Brown, all
those are the people that they're emulating.
But at the end of the day, they end up having nothing.
Yes, because suddenly they want to have Maybachs as well. They want to have Lamborghinis.
Yes.
They want to have
LVMH, all those kind of things,
exactly.
all these expensive
so
things.
That's the American. But at least the Americans, you know, they don't joke with tax.
Yes.
So I'm sure, I mean, people don't know that if you're an American, wherever you are, you pay tax.
Yes.
You don't have to be in America till the day you die. You'll be paying tax.
And the essence of the taxation is to reduce the money you're having back to the government. That is the essence. So if, for instance, you have 10,000 naira and the government created the means for you to get that 10,000, government wants you to spend the 10,000 back to itself.
Yes.
So they now create a taxation. When you go multiple taxation, VAT, blah, 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 everything will now come back to the government. When it get back to the government, right? So what does the government will do with the money they've taken out? So you go back and make FIRS, blah, 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 as a way to say tax return. They'll now return back the money again back to you. So whatever reform they're bringing, they need to understand the character. Character is an important phenomenon in every institution we're going to have. Let's people be serious. Then at the end of the day, again, government asks itself, how much are we getting from taxation? So much trillions of naira. But what is the salary of these people doing this work for me? How much am I paying them to protect that amount? So you pay them nothing. Do you expect them to be honest with you? So you go back to the welfare. You, the government, how much are you giving the citizens?
And the problem there is, of course, is that it's simplistic. You try to rectify what you're just talking about, and immediately it has its inflationary impact.
Yes.
Let's say you were to look at when we were through negotiations with labor, and finally have settled at what, 70,000 naira, something like that.
It's not enough. It's still less than $100.
So if government were to say that, look what Ibrahim Mohammed is saying, it's true. I think we should increase the basic salary to whatever, a respectable amount. Of course, there's going to be inflation because of the way our market is. Market women will say that, well, I don't have any office where they will add to my own, so I'm adding to my own here. I can do so. And she will add to her tomatoes, add to his pepper. And so these are the informalities. And
we have even more people not working for government than the people working for government. That's also a serious problem. The employment rates. The governments in a very good economy is supposed not to even create employment. It's supposed to create institutions that people will invest, open industries. And now, how many industries do we have? All this Dunlop, Guinness, all of them, they're before formerly in Lagos, but they're moving to Ghana. They say Ghana is the second safest country in the world. Second safest country in the world. But before, like 40 years back, we see a lot of Ghanaians coming into our economy.
That's right.
Doing this. But now they don't come anymore.
At all.
Because they are looking for a secure place to live, and their home is more secure than here. So security, everything you're doing, job security, food security, money security, inflation security, security, and the physical security itself is an important phenomenon. For instance, now how many cameras do we have in Lagos to monitor things? But now the government of Lagos is bringing Huawei to be able to install cameras for breaking rules of drivers, right?
Yeah.
So, but that also will serve as a security, because if something we'll go back to that camera and check. This thing is giving us a result of someone doing something wrong, or a thief, or a robber, or a burglar doing something wrong. There's a camera that will capture. It's for social affair, but at the end of the day, it's serving to protect civilians. So, but how many of those cameras can we travel at night?
In fact, Dr. Mohammed, you bring so many things into it that need to be factored into our understanding of what we've just heard. Just how secure are we? Some people have devised the methodology of we'll travel at night. It's supposed to be it's supposed to be safer. Not necessarily so.
Are the roads good? So how much does it cost to do a good road? Every day when you're walking on the street of America, you see the road is being, rehabilitated. You see them putting asphalt all the time. Potholes here, pothole there, because it's an internal thing. It's just as things you pick from. You don't have to import that. And we have that. It's just discipline.
Thank you. Do we have the organization
to go and do all those things?
We wait for it to fail before we address it. I mean, let's face it. We wait for whatever it is to fail before we address it.
We react. We are a reactive nation. And when we're even reacting at some point, some people are taking advantage of that reaction. How much do I get from this incidentals?
Exactly.
Then they now, at the end of the day, the incidental will not be. And we don't even document the incidental. So we just do come and go, grab and go. There's a food called grab and go. You grab it and you leave. So people do grab and go system. We're supposed not to do that. We're supposed to call Nigeria home. Whenever I travel, say, where are you from? I say, I'm from Nigeria. So, yeah, Nigeria.
Then they have, they have something
Nigerian
to say.
Goes, Nigerian guys are good. So I go to a store, they start marketing things for me, and I'll give them my spec. These are the things that I'm looking for. I don't follow names, I'm following value. So what value will this thing give me? Now, then the guy will now tell you, oh, Nigerians are very intelligent. So if Nigerians are intelligent, Nigerians are somewhat law-abiding. So the institution guiding them is failing. So that's why you see us being lawless. But if the heads of every department will put it as a task to say, okay, I'm disciplined enough to maintain rule of law, and not rule of law in the sense that make sure that the things are done right. But the things will be done right, provided if the government understand what it's supposed to. Government should not tell us it doesn't have money, because the government creates money.
Yeah, but you know,
Naira is created by government just by verbal statement.
Well,
credit this guy.
Yes, no, money by fiat.
Yes, that is how our system is. So they will just call CBN is the government's accountant, right? Okay, credits these people. Okay, NIPS this that, First Bank this. So all you see people coming up with all sorts of documents. Say in 1990 there was a loan taken by somebody from abroad, and they've done documentation and submitted to CBN, and CBN collected that money in 1990, and the owner is coming in 2023 to claim the 1990 loan. And you see CBN come in with a document saying, yes, we've investigated truly that past government collected, because there's no data, and everybody will believe, okay, this current government will now make that payment. How many of those cases are they having?
So there's a moral aspect to this.
Character.
This character, you've been emphasizing it from the beginning. Say,
yeah.
Because we all have to be for, it's like Trump is saying MAGA, make America great again. There's a sense in which the Nigeria
even more great.
Exactly.
Because for you to make Nigeria great.
But do we have that sentiment of, apart from those who are in office, and so they are championing that song, but the ordinary Nigerian out there, there's so much that he needs to do, but you and I know to survive. And as for rules, people will say if you are the only person keeping the rule, you will be the only person suffering. So there's not enough critical mass of morality for us to know that no, this is not tolerable anymore. Even though politicians told us that it's not going to be business as usual, well, here we are. We're in the middle of that.
Yes.
Well, we've used up our time, and it's such an exciting, especially when we talk about finances and money. But thank you very much, Dr. Ibrahim Mohammed. What you've done is to help us put in perspective, you know, the slide in the inflation rate. But we don't have very much time. But people seem to be waiting for the central bank to get together and come up with its interest rate, and they're expecting that this 34% to 24% is going to have an effect. Very, very briefly, are you also optimistic? No.
Reason being that the interest rates they're talking about is only affecting the borrower, which direct Nigerians that are really Nigerians. The few Nigerians, I mean, the lot of, we 100% Nigerians, so let me put it this way, about 250 million. So how many people borrow money from CBN? So if only 1 million Nigerians are borrowing, you're doing 24% or 30% increment, what happens to, let's say we're 250 million, what happens to 249 million? Will they get direct benefit from that increment or reduction that you're doing? So that's what I'm saying. They use America's economy to scale us. But they don't look at the other factors, that how many Nigerians do we have. So it boils down to data.
We're going to have to leave it here. But I want to thank you. This has been so enlightening. Thank you very much for coming along and sharing these perspectives with us. Yes, we've come down to 24.48%. It's supposed to be part of what? International best practices, and so Nigeria doesn't want to be counted out in that regard. But
then in the next 6 months, let's now come back and check.
And check it up again.
Because we can't just use 1 month, then we have 12 months. We can't just use 1 month to say, oh, we're doing good.
Okay. So, as I said, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for coming on the program. That's our program today. Do please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.